Most men wander through life in a fog, blindly pursuing love, approval, and happiness through the affections of women. They pour themselves into this pursuit, only to often land in heartbreak, used, discarded, or locked into relationships that suffocate their spirit. But nearly 2 centuries ago, a philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer dared to uncover and speak an uncomfortable truth about the nature of women, truths so raw and unfiltered that many men even today cannot stomach them. By the time you finish hearing this, you'll realize exactly where you've been misled, and you'll begin to understand how to reclaim control over your life in ways you never imagined. Listen closely, because what's coming isn't merely provocative. It is the essential truth most men will never dare to comprehend. Schopenhauer rejected illusions. He wasn't a man seduced by the romantic ideals that paint love as some kind of ethereal connection or cosmic fate. He viewed it instead as nature's clever device, a biological mechanism engineered not to bring lasting happiness, but to ensure the continuation of the species through reproduction. It's an instinctual force disguised as profound emotion, and both men and women are its willing pawns. Consider what happens when you feel drawn to a woman with an almost magnetic pull, that burning need to be near her, to possess her, to convince yourself that she is your destiny. You think your heart is calling out to her spirit, but in truth, deep beneath your awareness, your mind is performing a series of calculations. Is she fertile? Are her genes a match to yours? Would the potential offspring thrive? And whether they realize it consciously or not, women conduct the same evaluations, but they prioritize entirely different criteria. Schopenhauer once observed that love is the driving force behind the majority of human effort, but he didn't intend that statement to inspire poetic dreams. He meant it as a warning. Love, as most people experience it, is a fleeting chemical rush, a temporary madness crafted by evolution to drive humans into coupling long enough to produce children. Once that objective is met, the fire quickly burns out. Think about how many men have sacrificed careers, wealth, even sanity for a woman who left them without so much as a backward glance. How many marriages dissolve into bitterness and regret when that first wave of passion inevitably ebbs? That is no accident. It is the way life is designed to function. When it comes to choosing a mate, women do not prioritize fairness or loyalty, nor do they select partners according to logic or justice. Their subconscious instincts are wired to seek out status, security, and genetic excellence. A man's unwavering devotion counts for little if he lacks these key traits. Schopenhauer recognized this with chilling clarity. Women are not guided by reason in their romantic decisions. They are moved by deep-rooted instincts and powerful emotional forces. To label this observation as hatred would be to misunderstand it. It is simply a description of reality as it operates beneath the surface of social niceties. You only have to glance at the dating world to see proof. Observe how the vast majority of women pursue a small elite of men while disregarding the rest. Look at how the legal system often punishes commitment in the form of brutal divorce settlements. Reflect on history, where kings and emperors threw away empires for the fleeting attention of women who ultimately betrayed them. The same biological patterns persist today, and they always will, because they are not cultural. They are hard-coded into human nature. Far too many men fall into the trap of believing that love is an equal exchange, that by working hard enough, demonstrating enough loyalty, and sacrificing enough, they will be rewarded with a woman's lasting devotion. But Schopenhauer issued a stark warning. To win a woman's affection, one must not merely be just or kind, but shrewd. Women are drawn not to the nice guy who bends over backwards, but to the man who embodies strength in all its forms, physical, social, financial, and psychological. This is why the so-called good guys so often finish last. Their fundamental error is in believing that love is a matter of earning merit through service. In contrast, women instinctively gravitate toward those men who appear self-sufficient, who command respect without needing to seek approval. Have you noticed how a woman's interest often seems to fade after she has secured a man? The pursuit reverses. What was once an intense chase cools rapidly once possession is achieved. Schopenhauer described this as the tragedy of acquisition. The thrill lies not in keeping, but in conquering. Once conquest is complete, nature urges the players to move on. That is why the man who smothers a woman with attention, who makes her his entire world, soon watches helplessly as she drifts away. But crucially, this pattern is not the fault of women. It is the design of life itself. The wise man sees this clearly and adjusts his approach. He doesn't fall into bitterness or resentment. He stops blaming and starts strategizing. Schopenhauer's teaching was never about fostering hatred. It was about piercing the veil of illusion and recognizing love for what it is, a transaction, not a fairy tale. And the man who enters this negotiation from a position of weakness is guaranteed to lose. Yet this is only the first layer of the truth. The next is even more unsettling. It explains why so many modern men are losing ground in today's world and how to reverse that dynamic. Schopenhauer understood long before anyone else that the forces of attraction do not obey the principles of fairness or logic, nor do they operate in a man's favor. While today's culture may preach ideals of equality and mutual respect, biology cares nothing for such notions. The man who ignores this reality sets himself up for failure. The harsh truth is that women possess an inherent leverage in the sexual marketplace, not through malice, but because nature has designed them to be choosers. From the onset of sexual maturity, a woman's value peaks naturally. Her beauty, youth, and fertility create instant demand. Meanwhile, a man's value must be cultivated through years of effort, building status, resources, and resilience through struggle. Schopenhauer bluntly stated that women are well suited for nurturing the young because their own nature is inherently youthful, frivolous, and short-sighted. This was not meant as an insult, but as an evolutionary truth. A woman's youthful appearance is her greatest asset in the mating game, and she instinctively knows how to leverage it. Meanwhile, modern men find themselves caught in a cruel paradox. They are encouraged to be emotionally vulnerable, yet women still pursue dominance. They are shamed for embodying traditional masculinity, while the men who master those very qualities continue to dominate the dating arena. They are taught to work tirelessly, to sacrifice themselves in hopes of securing love, only to be left disillusioned and discarded by a system rigged against them. Schopenhauer foresaw this dynamic long ago. He observed that women are fundamentally guided by short-term thinking and emotional impulses. This capacity for present-focused behavior grants them a significant advantage in manipulating social interactions. In contrast, many men approach relationships through direct action, logical, straightforward, and often painfully naive. And in today's digital world, this advantage has been weaponized. Social media has transformed female attention into a currency, one that countless men unknowingly labor to acquire without reward. They become supplicants, competing for mere glimpses of validation from women who have no intention of reciprocating. Why does this happen? Because they have bought into a seductive lie that devotion alone will earn them love. Schopenhauer anticipated this trap. He recognized that most women are incapable of unconditional love. Their affection is tied directly to a man's utility, They do not cherish a man for his essence, but for what he can provide. The moment that provision falters, affection withers. This is not cruelty, it is survival instinct. Women are biologically driven to seek the highest value mate available. If a man declines in value, resentment follows and replacement is inevitable. And today's culture encourages this behavior. It celebrates female hypergamy while shaming men for resisting it. Schopenhauer divided men into two camps, those who serve and those who command. The first group sacrifices endlessly to prove their worth. The second group radiates worth effortlessly. One type grovels for loyalty, the other inspires relentless desire. You can witness this dynamic everywhere. The corporate employee who burns himself out chasing promotions in a desperate bid to regain his wife's respect, the gym-obsessed man who transforms his body only to find that women seek him for fleeting pleasure rather than lasting connection. The man who spends his hard-earned money on a woman who will abandon him the moment a wealthier suitor appears. These men are not victims. They are willing participants in a game they do not understand. Yet Schopenhauer didn't merely diagnose the problem, he offered a way forward. The first rule of survival is to see the world as it truly is, not as one wishes it to be. The men who thrive today are not those clinging to outdated fantasies of romantic love. They are the ones who master the game and understand its rules. The final, bitter truth is that the game is rigged, but only if you play by the wrong rules. The next truth is the hardest to accept, yet it holds the key to personal liberation. It is not ultimately about women, it is about you. The hardest truth to confront is not about women, it is about yourself. This realization will shatter illusions, but open a door that few men ever walk through. Arthur Schopenhauer grasped a reality that modern psychology now confirms in layers. Women and men do not compete in the same way. Men confront directly. Women influence invisibly, instinctively, and with remarkable subtlety. Their power is not overt. It resides in shaping perception itself. Consider this dynamic. When a man wants something, he typically asks, fights, or strives openly to obtain it. When a woman desires an outcome, she subtly molds your beliefs so that you think you chose it willingly. Schopenhauer saw this process clearly and articulated it long before the rise of modern behavioral sciences. Women, by their very nature, are better suited to operating within a world where direct strength is not their domain. They developed unmatched emotional intelligence, capable of reading the finest shifts in tone, facial expression, and social atmosphere. While a man engages in a conversation, a woman may already be 10 moves ahead, carefully shaping the narrative. Most men mistakenly believe they steer the course of their relationships. The truth is far less comfortable. From the first conversation to the final confrontation, women guide the flow of interactions through subtle but consistent tests. These tests are rarely recognized by the average man, which is why so many fail without knowing the game is being played. There is the compliance test. How swiftly will you rearrange your life to suit her needs? There is the frame test. Will you hold your ground or crumble beneath emotional pressure? There is the investment test. Are you chasing her more than she is pursuing you? Schopenhauer warned of this innate capacity for subtle manipulation. Women have an instinctive talent for bending reality to their advantage, not because they are malicious, but because this skill offered a survival edge throughout history. In times when physical power could not secure safety or provision, mastering social and emotional influence was essential. The women who lacked these abilities were less likely to pass on their lineage. Modern men often stumble into the oldest trap of all, confusing attention for authentic affection. They misread a woman's gaze or words, believing them to be signs of genuine desire, when in reality they may be instruments of testing or manipulation. Schopenhauer understood the cruel irony. Women are drawn most strongly to the man who does not need them, who does not make them his singular purpose. The moment you orient your life around a woman, you erode the very value she was drawn to in the first place. This explains why men who seem devoted to the point of obsession often find themselves abandoned, why relationships deteriorate when a man sacrifices his ambitions and identity to serve the needs of his partner, why emotionally unavailable men, those who maintain their own path and purpose, often become the objects of irresistible attraction. It is not that women seek mistreatment, rather they are biologically compelled to seek the highest value mate, and visible neediness is the swiftest way to signal low value. Every exchange with a woman contains a subtle negotiation of power. Most men do not even realize this. They lose before they know a game was taking place. Tears are deployed to evade accountability. Affection is strategically withheld to condition behavior. Flirting with others is used to test your security and confidence. Schopenhauer described this dynamic as the tyranny of the weak, a mechanism by which those who appear vulnerable can dominate stronger counterparts through psychological means. A man who succumbs to these tactics becomes enslaved, but the man who recognizes them, who sees the emotional strings being pulled, becomes impervious. This is not a call to hostility, but to awareness. The first step toward personal freedom is the ability to see the chains that bind you. Once you grasp that female nature operates according to biological imperatives, not personal malice, you stop taking it all so personally. You cease begging for loyalty and instead learn to inspire it through self-possession. And this brings us to the most vital lesson of all. The most dangerous deceptions are not those told by women, they are the lies that men tell themselves. The most devastating realization Schopenhauer ever offered was not about women at all, but about human nature itself. After laying bare the brutal mechanics of attraction and power, he pointed the way toward true liberation. It was never about defeating women or winning the so-called game. It was about rising beyond the entire paradigm. Modern men make one fatal error above all others. They seek fulfillment through external validation, chiefly from women. They believe happiness will come when they finally earn love or admiration. Schopenhauer dismantled this illusion. The deepest happiness, he observed, comes not from others, but from within. It is generated by mastering oneself, not by chasing approval or affection. The men who achieve greatness do not do so by pursuing the admiration of women. They do so by pursuing their own passions and purpose with such intensity that external validation becomes irrelevant. Throughout history, the men who changed the world, artists, inventors, warriors, did not squander their energies in the pursuit of fleeting approval. They built legacies. They immersed themselves in endeavors that transcended the whims of attraction and social gamesmanship. They became so focused on creation and mastery that they naturally drew admiration without ever seeking it. The path to unshakable masculinity rests on three unyielding pillars. First is economic autonomy. Schopenhauer noted that money is not true happiness, but a means of securing freedom. The man who commands his financial world commands his destiny. Second is intellectual depth. Most men drift through life without examining the forces that shape them. The exceptional man sharpens his mind until it can cut through the comforting lies of society. He reads, debates, reflects, and forms his own philosophy. Third is physical mastery. The body is not merely an instrument for attraction, it is the vessel through which willpower is expressed. Physical weakness fosters weakness in all areas of life. The strong body supports a strong mind and spirit. Here is where Schopenhauer's wisdom achieves its most revolutionary clarity. Expecting the world to grant you happiness is a surefire path to misery. Do not await perfection in love, fairness in relationships, or validation from others. Build a life so full and compelling that these things become mere ornaments, not necessities. When you release your hunger for approval and instead live in alignment with your highest values, paradoxically, the things you once chased will often find their way to you. This is not magic. It is the psychology of human desire. Those who do not need approval radiate the self-assurance that others find magnetic. Those who do not beg for loyalty inspire it instead. Those who pursue their own greatness rather than chasing love become the rare prize that others strive to claim. The age-old battle between the sexes is not a personal one. It is a biological play scripted over eons. The man who awakens to this reality ceases to blame women and instead evolves himself. He does not resent the nature of attraction. He adapts to it. He crafts a life so powerful, so rich with meaning, that only those women who meet his standards will be allowed entry, and those who cannot will simply watch from the sidelines. Schopenhauer once remarked that most people surrender the majority of themselves in order to fit in with the crowd. You face a choice: remain asleep, endlessly chasing illusions, or awaken to your true power. The so-called red pill is not about hatred. It is about reverence for truth. It is about embracing reality with such clarity that you can finally rebuild yourself in its image. And that is where your real life begins.